Hi, and welcome to the Daily Records High School Football Insider, the playoff edition. I'm sports writer Mike Plant alongside sports editor Aaron Dorksen. And Aaron, not even Hurricane Sandy could keep us from bringing the Football Insider to our viewing public, as we have 5 teams set to play this weekend in Week 11.
Yeah, it's a rainy week, but hopefully the weather clears up somewhat. I know Saturday's supposed to be nice, Friday could be iffy, but 5 teams, that's pretty exciting. 2 of them are going to play each other on Friday, the only Friday game. Northwestern will take on Norway, and that game's been moved to Cloverleaf, where the Bobcats started last year's state title run because of the weather effect. I'm just thinking, if we're getting blasted this bad in Ohio, I can't even imagine how bad it is on the Atlantic coast there, so hopefully everybody's all right. But that was a rematch of a 64-0 Norway win last week, so we'll get more into that game and see what's the Huskies' mindset on that. Saturday, 3 different teams, highlighted by West Holmes is at home. They're a 2nd seed. They're in the playoffs for the first time since 2000. They're going to host Wintersville, Indian Creek. Hillsdale is going to make a long road trip all the way down to Oak Hill, and Loudonville is going to stay a little closer to home. They're going to be Cyrus Winford.
We're going to take a break. When we come back, we'll look at the Norway-Northwestern Friday night matchup, as well as the other games here on the Daily Records High School Football Insider.
Welcome back to our special playoff edition. Mike, I was looking back on, this is only the 3rd time that there's been a WCAL rematch in the playoffs. The first 2 times the teams were not able to reverse the outcomes, and I don't think there's anyone out there really that would probably think that Northwestern can reverse a 64-0 score against a record-setting Norway team, but I know the Huskies want to play better. But those other, just to give a little, we always like to throw in some history. In 2002, Smithville defeated Dalton 21-19. It was a phenomenal game in Week 8. And then they met in the regional final in the Smithies, 35-8. They beat Dalton. It was played at Orville High School. Then in 2007, Waynedale defeated Northwestern 28-13 in Week 4. Then they turned around and had to play in the playoff opener. It was Waynedale 19, Northwestern 7. So for Coach Toot, this is his 2nd time he's had to turn around and play a league foe. And he admitted, in the playoffs, part of the excitement is playing a new opponent. I don't think anyone really wants to play a team from your league because you're going to wind up having to knock them out. But the Huskies, they had 7 turnovers in that game last week, most of them in the first half. They were down 55-0 at the end of the first half. They're just kind of relishing the fact that they're in the playoffs, and their attitude is, you know what, Norway's not 64 points better than us. Let's just be proud we're in the playoffs, have fun, enjoy all being together, and go out. And if they feel like they play their best game, whatever the outcome, they'll take pride in it. But no one at Northwestern thinks they played anywhere close to as good as they can. Not to bore the readers with stats, but 2 that are pretty important. Tyler Smith, a 1,000-yard rusher, was held at 9 rushes for just 25 yards, and quarterback Malachi Noletti against Norway, 2 for 11 passing, only 32 yards. They were both passes to Tyler Smith. So my biggest key is Northwestern's going to have to complete some passes down the field, hit some wide receivers to loosen up the defense, because Norway was just, it seemed like 9 guys were gunning for Tyler Smith.
Yeah, somebody asked me what would have happened on that first drive when Northwestern was stopped on 4th down and less than a yard. And I said, well, if they would have gone down and scored, it probably would have been 64-6. It was just Norway's night. And I guess I'm just glad that we're not picking these games this week. I don't know who the knucklehead was that would pick Northwestern. But, you look at Norway and Aaron. I've spent a little bit of time out there this week, and just talking to their kids, a couple of other kids, and Joe Harbor, they're really, they seem to be extremely focused going into the playoffs, which is, of course, where they made their great 5-game run last year to the state title. And playing on the turf where they started their run last year up at Cloverleaf, with their ability to throw the ball, they're a great team on turf. I would think that they're disappointed that they're not playing on their home field. Joe Harbour, the coach, told me that it's disappointing that they've earned a first-round game at home the last couple of years and have not been able to play in front of their home fans. Cloverleaf's not that far away, and with the turf, that takes the conditions completely out of it. Norway's continued to get that outstanding balance offensively with John Zimmerly running the ball, Joe Dreher passing the ball, and their offensive line. We've done a story recently on them. You can't really say enough about them. I think they might get it a little bit overlooked, Aaron, defensively. I mean, their defense has only given up 8 points per ball game, tossed a shutout at Northwestern. A couple of the guys that have really stood out to me, their inside linebacking duo of Chad Reed, Caleb Barb, and Logan Studer's another Norway player, doesn't get a whole lot of press, but has really done a nice job for him.
Yeah, I talked to Coach Harbour, and it's really a complete opposite this year in the playoffs. Last year they kind of snuck up on a lot of people. They'd only won one playoff game ever, and then they make an amazing run to be state title. People didn't even know if they could get by Orville. This year they're obviously not sneaking up on anybody,
no.
But they're also not favored to win the state title. Columbus Bishop Hartley, most people are picking them. They were first in the poll. I know the Cleveland Plain Dealer had an interesting comment. They said Norway plays a terrible schedule, but they proved last year how good they are, and with everybody back, the Plain Dealer's picking them to be the state runner-up. So even to get in the state title game, but hey, they proved last year anything can happen there. And how about the record-setting year that Zimmerly, Dreher, Brady Berger are having, Mike, and the team set the all-time area scoring record with 529 points.
Yeah, it's hard to believe that they've actually outdone themselves from a year ago, which is when we sat here and talked about when they were making their playoff run and how great their offense was. They're actually putting up better numbers this year. Starts with John Zimmerly, 1,700 yards rushing at over 10 yards a carry. That's, when you give him the ball and get a first down every single time, that's pretty effective. And Joe Dreher, who was sacked last week, a rare sacking of Joe. He's stood back there in the pocket pretty clean and has thrown for a ton of yardage. And of course, he's got Brady Berger, who's getting ready to set all the receiving records at Norway. Plus, Richie Smith, Mitch Canarium, both have 29 catches. And that doesn't even include Caleb, what's his name?
Caleb Harris. Yeah.
Caleb Harris.
Yep.
I knew that. I just talked to him
back
today. But yeah, Caleb's in there. Trevon Berry can run the ball. They've got so many weapons. It's just really phenomenal. And if I'm Mike Toots' defensive staff, I'm looking at the film and wondering just really what do you do to stop these guys.
Yeah. Well, let's shift gears to West Holmes. It's also having a phenomenal year. I know that Kevin Lynch, he covers a lot of our Holmes County, so he's seen them a lot more than Mike and me, but we've both seen them once, and hopefully we'll catch some of their games here coming up in the playoffs. All the Knights have done is they've reached the playoffs for the first time since 2000. They got a home game. They got their first ever share of the OCC title, and they have a record-setting running back in Lane Perrone. He's got 1,596 yards rushing, so he's right around the school record. He's set the school record with 27 touchdown rushes. And they're going to take on an Indian Creek team that's going to make the trip from Wintersville.
Yeah, Indian Creek's 9-1. Aaron has a decent tradition they've established down in the southern part of the state. Their numbers really aren't eye-popping. They're not going to jump out at you like one guy or a couple guys that they really got to stop. They're led by the quarterback Alex Young, who has rather modest numbers. He's got 702 yards passing and 9 touchdowns, and he's rushed for over 300 yards and 8 more TDs. I guess what you look at with them is their balance. They've got 6 players, I think, that have rushed for 100 yards or more. So it doesn't seem like there's one guy West Holmes has to focus on, and no one superstar for Indian Creek. But they're 9-1 and in the playoffs, so they're gonna test the Knights a little bit.
Statewide, not a lot of people are talking about West Holmes, and that's understandable. Maybe you could compare them to Norway last year, but this is a heck of a West Holmes team. I know the power rankings that the Fantastic 50 does had West Holmes slightly higher than Norway when you take in the strength of schedule and the scores, and I think playing in the OCC is going to make West Holmes a pretty handy favorite in this one. Then when they get into some further rounds, I think it's a winnable region. They'll have to play well, but you have Steubenville in there and Marlington. Indian Creek's, they haven't really had many close games. I don't think they play nearly the schedule, so they've blown out most of their opponents, and their one loss was 48-6 against St. Clairsville, which is one of the favorites in Division 4. But now we'll switch gears to the Division 5 teams that are playing Saturday night. Hillsdale is going to travel to Oak Hill. That's a long trip all the way down to about 3 hours down to Ohio River country, and they're going to take on an Oak Hill team that has 2,000-yard rushers and Devin Davis and Wes Hurd. Mike.
Yeah, the Oaks down there, and let's talk about Southern Ohio for Indian Creek. You got to go south and then go south again, get all the way down in the Wheelersburg area to where Oak Hill is. But it looks like I saw on film their stadium, great facility with field turf, so the weather won't be a factor. I know talking to Tom Williams a couple of times this week, after last year, of course, when Hillsdale went 9-1, had a great group of seniors, did not qualify for the playoffs, which ended their three-year string of playoff appearances. These guys would go all the way down to Oak Hill and then even farther if they had to play a playoff game. They're excited to be back in the postseason, and it's really given them a little bit of rejuvenation after going 7-3 in the regular season, with their 3 losses to Loudonville, Northwestern, and Norwayne, all 3, of course, in the playoffs. Hillsdale will be led by their record-setting running back, Corbin Major. Got a story on him in Tuesday's Daily Record. He has the single season and single games rushing records already as a sophomore, Aaron. He's already more than halfway to the career rushing record at Hillsdale. So not real explosive. The Falcons, they're not a fancy team. They're going to line up and try to smash mouth you. And Tom Williams told me that that's exactly what the kind of game they can expect out of Oak Hill, real physical.
Yeah, Loudonville, they're another team that's going to play smash mouth. They have a pair of 1,000-yard rushers. They're going to stay closer to home. They're going to go over to Bucyrus-Winford, Mike, and we've had several area teams take on Winford the past few years.
Yeah, I've jammed into that press box over there a couple times. They put me in the back row at an elementary school type desk, but Winford has only lost a handful of regular season games over the past 7 or 8 years, Aaron, and they're pretty good at home too. They've already lost 2 games. This is their worst regular season they've had since 2003 with 2 losses, so 8-2. We got a new coach, but really the same old results. Nothing but winning over there from the Royals. And Loudonville back in the playoffs for the first time in a dozen years. The 1-2 punch of running backs Colton Edmondson, who's rushed for over 1,400 yards. He's just a sophomore. And then senior Ryan Weber, who went over 1,000 yards last week in the Redbirds' win over Fredericktown. Gives him 1,009. Both of them have 11 touchdowns. And Weber will lead the Redbirds' defense as by far their leading tackler, one of the best linebackers in Division 5 in Ohio.
Well, there you have it. There's a quick rundown of the games. We're guaranteed, Mike, at least having 1 team left. I'm pretty sure we'll have several more. So you can read all about these games in the Daily Record. Also follow us online. And thanks for watching this edition of the Daily Record High School Football Insider.